Imagine you wake up tomorrow, and every dollar, every rupee, every coin, every bank account on earth has suddenly disappeared. Your money is gone, but the grocery store is still there. The farmer still has food. The mechanic still has tools. The doctor still knows how to treat people. The problem is simple. How do you trade with them? You have something they want. They have something you want. So you offer them what you have. But what if they don't want it? You have chickens. The farmer has wheat. You want wheat, but the farmer doesn't want chickens. He wants shoes. The shoemaker wants fish. The fisherman wants an axe. And the person who makes axes wants chickens. Suddenly, something that sounds incredibly simple becomes a nightmare. This was the problem humans faced for thousands of years. Before banks, before credit cards, before paper money, before coins, before anyone had a wallet, humans still needed a way to answer one very important question. How much is something worth? And somehow, our ancestors came up with one of the most powerful inventions in human history: money. But here's the strange part. Humans didn't wake up one morning and invent money. There was no single person who looked at a pile of stones and said, "I've got it. Let's invent currency." Money evolved slowly, and the first form of money probably looked nothing like the money you carry today. To understand why money appeared, we have to go back to a world where there were no shops, no markets, and no prices. For most of human history, people lived in small communities. You hunted. You gathered plants. You made tools. You built shelters. And most of what you produced was used by you, your family, or your group. If you caught a large animal, you didn't necessarily need to keep the entire thing. You could share the meat with other people, and they might share something with you later. This sounds like trade, but there's an important difference. Early human societies were often based on something much more complicated than simple buying and selling. They were based on relationships. If your neighbor helped you during a difficult hunt, you remembered it. If your family had extra food, you shared it. If someone helped build your shelter, you might help them later. There didn't need to be an exact calculation. You didn't have to say, "I owe you 4.7 kilograms of meat." Trust was the accounting system. But as human societies became larger, that system became harder to manage. More people meant more needs. More specialization meant more things to exchange. A person who spent all day making pottery might not have enough food. A farmer might need tools. A hunter might need clothing. A fisherman might need grain. And eventually, humans faced the problem that would change civilization forever. Barter. Barter sounds simple. You have something. I have something. We trade. But barter has a serious weakness. Both people have to want what the other person has. Economists sometimes call this the double coincidence of wants. Imagine you are a fisherman. You catch 20 fish. You don't need 20 fish. You need a new knife. So you find a person who makes knives, but the knife maker doesn't want fish, he wants grain. So now you need to find someone with grain who wants fish and who is also willing to give you enough grain for the knife maker. This becomes increasingly complicated. The larger society becomes, the worse the problem gets. And this is where something fascinating happened. Humans began using objects that other people would accept even when they didn't personally need them. These objects became valuable because everyone agreed they were valuable. That is the basic idea behind money. Money doesn't necessarily have to be useful by itself. It has to be trusted. And this is where the story gets really strange. Some of the earliest things humans used as money were things that were already valuable for other reasons. Shells, beads, livestock, grain, salt, metal, cloth. Even objects that seem completely useless today could become incredibly valuable if enough people agreed to accept them. One of the most famous examples is shell money. Certain shells were collected, transported over long distances, and used as a medium of exchange in different societies. Why shells? Because they had several useful properties. They were relatively durable, they could be carried, they could be counted, they could be stored, and, most importantly, they could be recognized by other people as valuable. That last part is everything, because money is not really about the object. It's about the agreement surrounding the object. A piece of paper has almost no value by itself. You can't eat it. You can't build a house with it. You can't hunt with it. But if millions of people agree that the piece of paper represents purchasing power, suddenly that paper can buy food, clothing, land, and almost anything else. The same basic principle existed thousands of years ago. If everyone agrees that a certain shell, piece of metal, or amount of grain represents value, it becomes money. And then humans took this idea even further. One of the oldest forms of accounting we know about comes from ancient Mesopotamia. Thousands of years ago, societies in the region needed to keep track of things like grain, animals, labor, and goods. The solution wasn't a wallet, it was writing. Some of the earliest writing systems were closely connected to administration and record-keeping. People needed to know who owed what, who had delivered grain, how much grain was stored, how many animals belonged to a particular institution, how much a worker was supposed to receive. This is a crucial point. Money wasn't just about buying things, it was also about keeping records. And once humans learned to record value, economies could become dramatically more complicated. You could owe something today and repay it later. You could store wealth. You could measure one person's contribution against another person's. You could collect taxes. You could pay workers. You could organize huge projects involving thousands of people. Civilization itself became easier to manage. Then came one of the most important inventions in the entire history of money: coins. The first widely recognized coins appeared in the ancient world around the 7th century BC, particularly in Lydia, in what is now Western Turkey. And coins solved several problems at once. They were durable, they were portable, they could be standardized, and they could carry an official mark. That mark was incredibly important. It told people that the coin had been produced and guaranteed by an authority. You didn't have to personally know the person who gave you the coin. You didn't have to trust the metal worker who made it. You trusted the authority behind the mark. This was a massive psychological breakthrough, because money could now move between strangers. A farmer could sell grain to a merchant. The merchant could use the same coins to pay a soldier. The soldier could use them to buy food. The shopkeeper could use them to pay someone else. The same object could pass through dozens or hundreds of hands while still representing value. And once money started moving like this, something extraordinary happened. Trade exploded, but coins weren't perfect. They were heavy. They could be stolen. Large transactions required huge amounts of metal. Imagine trying to buy a building using nothing but bags of coins. So humans eventually developed another idea: paper money. But paper money wasn't simply valuable because it was paper. In many cases, it represented something else: a promise, a claim, a record. A piece of paper could tell you that you had the right to receive a certain amount of something valuable. And eventually, people realized something even more powerful. You don't necessarily need the physical thing at all. You just need a trusted record saying that you own it. This idea eventually led to banks, credit, deposits, checks, and modern financial systems. And then money became almost completely invisible. Today, most money doesn't exist as physical cash. It's numbers on computer systems. When you transfer money to someone, no truck drives across the country carrying your banknotes. A database changes. One balance goes down, another balance goes up, and somehow, we all accept that those numbers represent real purchasing power. Think about how strange that is. A prehistoric human might have looked at a shell and believed it represented value. A medieval merchant might have counted silver coins. A modern person looks at a number on a phone screen. The object changed. The underlying idea didn't. Money is a shared system of trust. But there is another question. Why did some things become money while others didn't? Why shells? Why metals? Why salt? Why livestock? Why not rocks? The answer is that good money tends to have certain characteristics. It needs to be relatively durable. It needs to be portable. It needs to be divisible. It needs to be recognizable. It needs to be difficult enough to produce that people can't create unlimited amounts instantly. And most importantly, other people need to accept it. That's why something can be incredibly useful without being good money. Water is essential to life. But carrying water around as a universal currency would be ridiculous. Gold is much less useful for survival, but it is durable, portable, divisible, recognizable, and relatively scarce. That makes it much better money. And this reveals something fascinating. Money is not really a thing. It's a system created by human beings to solve a problem. The problem of trust, the problem of value, the problem of exchanging something you have today for something you need tomorrow. And once you see money this way, modern currency starts looking very different. A banknote is a promise. A bank balance is a record. A coin is a token. A credit card is a mechanism for transferring trust. Even cryptocurrency follows the same basic idea, although it changes who or what provides the trust. The technology keeps changing. The principle doesn't. Humans need a way to agree on value. And that agreement has become one of the most powerful forces in human history. Money allowed strangers to cooperate. It allowed people to specialize. A farmer could focus on growing food instead of making shoes. A blacksmith could focus on making tools instead of hunting. A builder could focus on construction instead of growing grain. Money connected all of them. It turned individual skills into a giant network of cooperation. But it also created something else: power. Once wealth could be stored and transferred, people could accumulate it. Once wealth could be accumulated, inequality could grow. Kings could collect taxes. Empires could pay armies. Merchants could finance voyages. Banks could lend money. Governments could borrow enormous amounts. Money didn't just make trade easier. It changed politics. It changed warfare. It changed social class. It changed what humans considered valuable. And perhaps the strangest part of the entire story is that money only works because we collectively believe it works. If tomorrow everyone stopped accepting dollars, dollars would lose their purchasing power. If everyone stopped accepting gold, gold would lose much of its monetary function. If everyone stopped accepting a particular cryptocurrency, its value could collapse. The object isn't magic. The agreement is. That means the most powerful invention wasn't the coin. It wasn't the shell. It wasn't the banknote. It was the idea that an object, symbol, or record could represent value because other people agreed that it did. That idea is thousands of years old, and it is still running the world today. The prehistoric hunter, who exchanged food with another human, could never have imagined a bank account. The ancient merchant counting silver could never have imagined paying for something with a phone. And yet they were participating in the same basic system. Find something people trust. Give it a value, exchange it, record it, and trust that someone else will accept it tomorrow. So when you look at the money in your wallet, or the number sitting inside your bank account, you're not just looking at money. You're looking at the result of thousands of years of human experimentation. Shells became coins, coins became paper, paper became bank balances, and bank balances became numbers on screens. The form changed again and again. But the strange human invention, underneath all of it, remained the same. We created something that has no value unless we agree that it does. And then we built civilization around that agreement.